10 days after 18-year-old Nolan Wells was found dead on the shores of Mississippi's Horn Island, his family and their lawyers having their first face-to-face meeting with the local district attorney.
We did not get all the answers we want.
Nolan went on a 4th of July boat trip with friends. After some of them returned without him, his mom contacted police.
Police reported 18-year-old son, Nolan Wells, missing last seen at 3 on Horn Island.
And now NBC News has obtained new audio, part of a records request, of a call made to a private towing company by some of Nolan's friends.
We're sinking. Can y'all please come?
A mom of one of those friends wrote last week that the group left without Nolan when their boat began malfunctioning and that Nolan decided to stay on the island.
Is everybody on board in good health otherwise?
Yeah, everybody's on board.
As Nolan's family waits for answers, they've learned the case will be presented to a grand jury once the investigation is complete. The DA telling NBC News that's standard procedure for cases dealing with unknown causes of death and not an indication that a crime was committed.
We also agreed that we will have a mutual inspection of the cell phone with our experts and their experts.
Nolan's parents have said they believe content may have been deleted from his cell phone and are still demanding a thorough and fair investigation.
We know in America, in the South, certain people are investigated differently.
The Jackson County Sheriff telling me his investigators have interviewed several witnesses and are still piecing together details.
Do you feel like you're getting useful information that's been helpful to figuring out what happened?
Yes, sir. We're getting very useful information, and we appreciate the public coming forward.
Nolan's mother says planning for his funeral doesn't feel real.
He would not want us to be sitting around crying. So what we're going to do is kind of have a party to celebrate him.
He was there, and then he wasn't. No distress call. No argument witnessed by a crowd. No dramatic final moment anyone can point to and say, that's where it happened. Just a barrier island baking under a 4th of July sun, a group of friends loading back onto a boat, and one empty space where a young man used to be standing. By the time anyone realized something was wrong, the boat was already gone. What you are about to hear is not a rumor. It is not a theory stitched together from comment sections and viral posts. It is the documented, verified, and deeply disturbing account of what happened, and what has still never been fully explained, in the hours surrounding the disappearance of a young man on what should have been the most ordinary holiday of his life. A day of sun and water and friends. A day that ended with a family waiting by a phone that never rang. There is a conversation that took place on a beach that afternoon. 2 people heard it. Both of them remember it differently. And somewhere between those 2 versions of the same moment lives the one question a mother and father cannot stop asking. Did their son choose to stay, or was he never given the choice at all? We have to warn you before we go any further. This case involves the death of a young man, and the details ahead are not easy. If you are in a fragile place tonight, please take care of yourself first. This story will still be here when you're ready. But if you are someone who believes that the truth matters, especially when a family is still fighting to find it, then stay with us, because what we've uncovered tonight goes deeper than anything you've seen covered elsewhere. If this is your first time here at Unsolved Files, hit that subscribe button right now, because this case is still moving and you do not want to miss a single update as it breaks. And before we go any further, drop a comment and tell us where in the world you are watching from tonight, because somewhere in Mississippi, a family is still waiting for the right person to come forward with the one detail that changes everything. That person could be watching this right now. Could be you. This is the Nolan Wells case. And nothing about it is as simple as it was first made to seem. Nolan Xavier Wells was 18 years old, and by every account that has come out of Ocean Springs, Mississippi, he was exactly the kind of kid people remember. He played wide receiver at Ocean Springs High School, graduated in 2025, and on National Signing Day that February, he stood with his teammates and signed his letter of intent to continue his football career at Southwest Mississippi Community College. When a local reporter asked him what the moment meant, he did not talk about himself. He talked about his teammates. He said it was a blessing to be going to college alongside the people he had grown up competing with. His head coach at Ocean Springs, Jake Bramlett, described him with the kind of consistency you only hear when someone has genuinely earned it across every room they ever walked into. Off the field, Nolan was close to his family. Not in a quiet, distant way, in an active, present way. The evening of July 3rd, the night before everything changed, he made his mother salmon for dinner. Not because it was a special occasion. Just because he felt like it. When he left the house that night to spend the evening with friends ahead of the holiday weekend, Christine Wansley, his mother, watched him go. Her description of that moment is 3 words. It was hug, kiss, and he left. His father, Elmore Wansley, raised him with a principle that sounds simple but carries weight in the context of what came next. If you go with a group, you stay with a group. Nolan knew that rule. His parents had repeated it enough times that it was not a suggestion anymore. It was just how he moved through the world. One more thing about Nolan that matters and will matter more as this story develops. He was on Snapchat every day. Not occasionally. Every day. Photos, videos, messages, a consistent digital presence that the people closest to him describe as completely routine. The kind of habit so ordinary you stop noticing it until the day it stops. Horn Island was not a new destination for him either. He had been there before with friends. July 4th was familiar territory. None of that made what happened next any easier to explain. If you are new here, subscribe to Unsolved Files right now. This case is still open and still moving, and every confirmed development will be covered here the moment it becomes available. What happened on July 4, 2026, is not entirely unknown. Parts of it are documented, tracked, time-stamped. And those timestamps matter because in a case built largely on competing accounts and unanswered questions, the GPS record does not have a side. At 9:56 in the morning, the boat carrying Nolan and his friends left a private dock in the Ocean Springs area. That departure time is not an estimate or a recollection. It is confirmed data obtained by CBS News from the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources, which had the vessel's movements logged automatically from the moment it left the dock. At 11:14 a.m., the boat arrived at Horn Island. For anyone unfamiliar with Horn Island, it sits roughly 10 miles off the Mississippi Gulf Coast, south of Ocean Springs. It is a federally protected barrier island. There are no roads on it, no permanent structures, no facilities. The only way on or off is by private boat. Every July 4th, it draws crowds, families, friend groups, people looking to spend the holiday on the water away from the mainland. Nolan had been there before. For him and his friends, this was not an unusual choice for a holiday weekend. What happened during the hours between 11:14 a.m. and the point the day started to unravel is not fully established in the confirmed record. What is known is that the group was together on the island through the afternoon. They were not alone out there. Horn Island on the 4th of July draws enough people that there were other boats, other groups, other witnesses, people investigators have since asked to come forward with any photos or video from that day. At some point during the afternoon, Nolan met and spent time with a young woman on the island. Her first name is Katie. That detail was confirmed publicly by Josh Gill, the incident commander of the United Cajun Navy, which later assisted with the search. At the time, her presence on the island was mentioned but her identity was not publicly known. That would change later. The last time Nolan's friends confirmed seeing him was at approximately 3 p.m. At 4:31 p.m., the boat left Horn Island. Nolan was not on it. That is a gap of 1 hour and 31 minutes between the last confirmed sighting and the boat's departure. 91 minutes that no one has fully accounted for. 91 minutes that Jackson County investigators, the family's legal team, and eventually a grand jury will have to reconstruct from whatever evidence still exists. Everything that follows in this case flows directly out of that window of time. At 4:31 p.m. on July 4, 2026, the boat left Horn Island. Nolan Wells was not on it. The reason the friends gave for leaving when they did was a mechanical failure. The boat's bilge pump had stopped working and the vessel was taking on water. That explanation came into public view through a Facebook statement posted by Jackson County Chancery Judge Ashley Cole, the stepmother of Warren Hudson, one of the young men on the boat that day. In that statement, Judge Cole said Warren last saw Nolan at around 3 p.m. She said the group left the island around 4:30 p.m. because of the bilge pump issue. And she said that before they left, Nolan made a decision to stay on the island and planned to return to the mainland later with a separate group of friends. That is the version of events as stated by someone with direct access to one of the key witnesses. Then came the audio. NBC News obtained a recording of a call made from the boat to a private towing company around 4 p.m. on July 4th. The boat's operator can be heard saying, "Hey, we're at the west tip of Horn and our bilge pump stopped working. We're going. We're sinking. Can you all please come?" The dispatcher responded by asking whether everyone on board was in good health. The operator's answer was direct. Yeah, everybody is on board." At the time of that call, Nolan Wells was not on the boat. The operator told the dispatcher everybody was on board. Investigators now have that recorded statement as part of the documented timeline. Whether it reflects a miscommunication, an oversight in a stressful moment, or something else entirely is a question that has not been answered on the record. The boat was towed approximately 3 miles before regaining normal operation. It then returned to its original departure dock. But the GPS record from the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources shows that the boat's movements did not end there. At 5:52 p.m. the vessel traveled into Fort Bayou. By 6:06 p.m. it was back at the dock again. Later that night it was taken out of the water entirely and transported over land to a residence in Biloxi owned by the boat's owners. 4 separate tracked movements across several hours after Nolan was left on the island. Not one direct trip home, but a series of stops that the GPS record captured automatically with no input from anyone involved in the case. The Mississippi Department of Marine Resources report, which contains all of this movement data, ends on July 5. That is the date the Jackson County Sheriff's Office formally assumed its role as the lead investigating agency, at which point jurisdiction over the case and its evidence transferred accordingly. The DMR report does note one detail worth holding on to. The owner of the boat, his mother, and one other person who was present with Nolan that day are listed as cooperating with the investigation. Cooperation is noted. But the GPS record is already written. 4 movements. Every timestamp locked in. And Nolan Wells still on an island with no way off. The first call reporting Nolan Wells missing did not come from his family. It came from Warren Hudson, one of the friends who had been on the boat. Warren contacted the Coast Guard around 11 p.m. on July 4th. That detail was confirmed in Judge Ashley Cole's public statement and later verified by the Wells family themselves. Around midnight, Christine Wansley contacted the Jackson County Sheriff's Office separately. By that point she already knew her son had not come home. She did not wait for morning. In the early hours of July 5th, Christine began posting publicly on Facebook, appealing to anyone who might have information about where Nolan was. The posts were direct and urgent. She was not circulating rumors. She was a mother asking strangers to help her find her son. That same night, the family began using a locator app to track Nolan's phone. What they found when they traced it would become one of the most significant threads in this entire investigation, but that comes later. The Jackson County Sheriff's Department moved quickly to coordinate a search effort, working alongside the U.S. Coast Guard and the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources to cover the waters and shoreline around Horn Island. The United Cajun Navy, a volunteer search and rescue organization, joined the effort as well. Their incident commander on the ground was Josh Gill. Brian Troshers, who serves in a national representative role for the organization, later spoke to CBS News about their involvement in the search. The search ran through July 5th without a confirmed finding. On the morning of July 6th, at approximately 8:45 a.m., a park ranger discovered a body in the water just off the northwestern tip of Horn Island. The body was identified as Nolan Xavier Wells. Sheriff John Ledbetter spoke to ABC News in the days that followed. His position at that stage was measured. He said there was no information at that point that would lead investigators to believe a crime had occurred. Authorities indicated they suspected drowning, but no cause of death was officially declared. The investigation remained open. Christine Wansley confirmed her son's passing publicly through a Facebook post. She thanked the community, the volunteers, and law enforcement for their efforts. Then she asked for privacy for her family. That request was about to become very difficult to honor. If you want every confirmed update in this case as it develops, subscribe to Unsolved Files right now. We cover what is verified and this case is far from over. 4 days after Nolan's body was found, his parents sat down for their first major public interview. Christine and Elmore Wansley appeared on Good Morning America with Michael Strahan on July 10, 2026. What they said was not grief performing for a camera. It was a structured, specific challenge to the official account of how their son died. Elmore went first with the detail that had been sitting with him since the night Nolan did not come home. He said he and Christine had raised their son with one consistent rule. If you go with a group, you stay with a group. That was not a casual preference. It was a principle Nolan had grown up with. Elmore's question on national television was the same one he had been asking privately since July 4th. If that rule was that deeply instilled, why would Nolan have chosen to stay behind on a remote island while his only confirmed ride home left without him? Christine raised a separate but equally direct concern. Nolan was an elite athlete, a college football player in active training. The family was told authorities suspected drowning. Christine's position was straightforward. Nolan could swim. That explanation, delivered before any autopsy results were available, did not sit right with her. Then came the phone. The family had tracked Nolan's phone using a locator app on the night he went missing. A family friend retrieved it from the home of one of Nolan's friends. At a press conference, attorney Ben Crump confirmed a detail that immediately sharpened the family's concerns. When the friends left Horn Island, they took Nolan's phone with them. They also took his car keys. Crump stated it plainly. What teenager leaves their phone behind if they are planning to stay on an island voluntarily? His words, it is not adding up at all. When Christine and her sister went through the phone, they checked both of Nolan's Snapchat accounts. There was nothing on either of them. No photos, no videos, no messages from that day. Not even content from the 24 hours prior, which matters because Snapchat retains content automatically for 24 hours by default. For a young man whose daily Snapchat use was so consistent it had become invisible to the people around him, the silence on those accounts during exactly the window that matters most was something his own family could not explain away. There was also a discrepancy in the official record. The police report listed Nolan as wearing black shorts at the time of his disappearance. Christine Wansley stated that a young woman who had been on the island that day later reached out and shared photographs showing Nolan in blue shorts. CNN separately reported he was photographed that day in blue swim trunks and sunglasses. The police report has not been updated to reflect that discrepancy. And before Nolan's body was even found, the family had gone to retrieve his car from a friend's house. The friend at the door said he could not find the keys. Minutes passed. The keys eventually turned up inside the house on top of an Xbox, after someone overheard on a phone call mentioned exactly where they had been the entire time. Taken individually, each of these details has an explanation. Taken together, they form the foundation of why this family refused to accept the initial account as complete. For nearly 2 weeks after Nolan Wells disappeared, one name kept surfacing in conversations about his final hours without ever being fully explained. Katie. That was all anyone said. A first name, referenced by the friends, attached to no public identity, no statement, no face. In a case already full of unanswered questions, she became one more. Then the speculation online reached a level that forced a response. Gracie McCormick, Katie's mother, stepped forward publicly to correct what was being said about her daughter. Her account was specific and direct. Katie was on Horn Island on July 4th. She spent time with Nolan during the afternoon. At some point that day she said goodbye to him, got on a different boat and left the island. She was home. She was reachable. She had been reachable the entire time. On the night Nolan went missing, there had been a moment of additional panic when Katie's name came up in early conversations and the question arose of whether she might also be unaccounted for. That fear turned out to be completely unfounded. Katie was never missing. According to her mother, she has no knowledge of anything that happened to Nolan after they parted ways that afternoon. That would be the end of Katie's role in this story if it were not for what attorney Ben Crump confirmed next. Crump stated on record that Katie's account of her final conversation with Nolan Wells directly conflicts with what the friends told investigators. The conflict is not subtle. It is a direct contradiction between two first-hand accounts of the same moment. According to Katie, Nolan told her during their conversation on the beach that he was planning to rejoin his friends and get back on the boat before it left the island. He was not planning to stay. He was planning to leave. According to the friends, Nolan told them the exact opposite. That he intended to stay behind on the island by his own choice, without them, and that he would find another way back to the mainland. Both of those accounts cannot be accurate. Nolan Wells said one thing or the other. He did not tell one person he was leaving and simultaneously tell his friends he was staying, unless something changed between those two conversations that no one has yet explained. What that something might have been, and when exactly it happened within that 91-minute window, is precisely what investigators have not been able to answer on the record. As of this recording, neither the family's legal team, law enforcement, nor the district attorney's office has publicly resolved that contradiction. It sits at the center of this case without resolution, and it is the single most important factual conflict the grand jury will eventually have to work through. One person told the truth about what Nolan said. The other account is wrong. And right now, nobody with the authority to say which is which has done so. Two people heard the same man speak and remember two completely different things. When the grand jury works through that, unsolved files will be the first place you hear about it. Subscribe now and turn on notifications so you do not miss it. Within days of Nolan's body being found, this case stopped being a local story. The Wells family retained Ben Crump, one of the most prominent civil rights attorneys in the country. His public statement on taking the case was unambiguous. He said the family deserves answers and deserves the truth, and that his team would not stop until every fact about what happened on Horn Island was brought into the light. He also confirmed that the friends who were with Nolan that day had obtained their own legal representation, which meant Crump's investigators had not spoken to them directly and could not at that stage of the process. On July 10, 6 days after Nolan disappeared and 4 days after his body was found, a press conference was held at the National Action Network headquarters in Harlem, New York. Ben Crump and Reverend Al Sharpton stood together in front of cameras alongside Christine and Elmore Wansley and called for a full, transparent, and urgent investigation. Filmmaker Spike Lee attended in person to show his support for the family. The event was not held in Mississippi. That choice alone communicated something about where the family's trust was and was not placed. The Congressional Black Caucus issued a formal statement the same week. Their words were direct. Too many questions remain unanswered, they said, and the Wells family, the Mississippi community, and the American people deserve a full, transparent, independent, and timely investigation. The reason this national mobilization happened as fast as it did is inseparable from one documented fact. In the photographs taken on the boat that day, Nolan Wells appears to be the only black member of the friend group. Ocean Springs, the community where Nolan grew up, is nearly 79% white according to U.S. Census data. When those photographs circulated online, CNN reported that they became something of a Rorschach test for American race relations in 2026. People looked at the same image and saw entirely different things depending on what they already believed about race in this country. Ben Crump addressed the racial dimension directly and on record. He cited Mississippi's history, including the 1955 lynching of Emmett Till, as the specific reason the Wells family did not trust that a Mississippi law enforcement agency could conduct a fair and impartial investigation into their son's death without independent oversight. That is not an inference. It is a stated position from the family's own attorney. The intensity of public attention also produced something darker. Death threats were made against individuals connected to the investigation. Those threats crossed state lines, which brought the FBI into the case. FBI Jackson confirmed its involvement is specifically tied to investigating those threats under federal jurisdiction. National figures. Federal involvement. A grand jury. This case is bigger than one island off the Mississippi coast. Stay with us here at Unsolved Files and subscribe so you do not miss what comes next. When Nolan's body was recovered on the morning of July 6, the Jackson County Sheriff's Office indicated that authorities suspected drowning. That was the initial position. Not a confirmed finding, not a completed forensic determination, but the direction investigators were pointing before a single autopsy result had come back. For Christine Wansley and Elmore Wansley, that was the moment the process stopped feeling trustworthy. The official autopsy was conducted by the Mississippi State Medical Examiner's Office. As of this recording, those results, including toxicology findings, have not been publicly released. The investigation remains open and the cause and manner of Nolan's death have not been officially declared. The family did not wait for those results before deciding they needed their own. Ben Crump announced that the Wells family had commissioned an independent autopsy to be conducted by a forensic pathologist in Washington, D.C., specifically chosen because she had no ties to Mississippi law enforcement. The decision to go outside the state entirely was deliberate. Crump stated the family's position plainly. The speed with which local authorities had moved toward a drowning conclusion, before any completed forensic findings existed to support it, was itself a reason for concern. Combined with the family's broader distrust of the local investigative environment, an independent examination was not optional for them. It was necessary. Nolan's body was transported from Mississippi to Washington, D.C. for that examination. The funding for the independent autopsy came from Colin Kaepernick's Know Your Rights camp. That was confirmed on record by Crump. Separately, Crump confirmed that filmmaker and media mogul Tyler Perry had stepped in to cover the cost of Nolan's funeral expenses entirely. Both of those commitments were made publicly and are part of the documented record of this case. The independent autopsy results were expected to be announced during the July 10 press conference in Harlem. They were not. Crump cited canceled flights as the reason for the delay and told reporters the results would be shared as soon as they were available. As of this recording, neither the official autopsy nor the independent autopsy has produced publicly released findings. What the family has stated consistently is this. Nolan was an elite athlete in active physical training. He could swim. Whether the forensic evidence, when it is finally released, supports or challenges the initial drowning suspicion is a question this case still has not answered. Nolan Wells left Horn Island without his phone. Or more precisely, his phone left Horn Island without him. When the friends departed on the boat at 4:31 p.m., they took Nolan's phone with them. They also took his car keys. Both of those facts were confirmed on record by Ben Crump. For a family already asking why their son would voluntarily stay behind on a remote island, the knowledge that he was left there without his phone and without his keys added a specific weight to that question that has not been lifted since. The family traced the phone using a locator app on the night Nolan went missing. The device was tracked to a location on land, at the home of one of Nolan's friends. A family member went there and retrieved it. What they found when they examined it is one of the most significant evidentiary details in this entire case. Christine Wansley confirmed on Good Morning America that when she and her sister went through both of Nolan's Snapchat accounts, there was nothing on either of them. No photos. No videos. No messages from that day or from the 24 hours before they recovered the phone. For a platform that retains content automatically for 24 hours, the complete absence of any material during exactly the period investigators need to account for is a detail the family says cannot be explained by normal use. There is a second problem with the phone beyond the missing content. The location data associated with the phone's account did not match the physical location where the device was actually recovered. That discrepancy has not been explained by anyone on the record. Ben Crump announced plans to bring in digital forensic experts to attempt recovery of any deleted data from the device. That process was always going to require cooperation between the family's team and official investigators to carry legal weight. On July 15, following the Wells family's meeting with Jackson County District Attorney Angel Myers-McElrath, both sides reached an agreement. A mutual inspection of the phone would take place with family-side experts and Jackson County investigators present at the same time, reviewing the extracted data together in real time rather than separately. Attorney Eric Hertz is leading that effort on the family's side, working alongside former law enforcement professionals with digital forensic experience. The Jackson County Sheriff's Office has also made a separate public request for any original unedited photos or videos taken on Horn Island on July 4, with specific attention to content showing alleged altercations or images of Nolan. The Congressional Black Caucus has formally called for all evidence, including the phone data, to be placed before the grand jury without omission. As of this recording, the mutual phone inspection has not yet taken place. When a case moves this fast and this publicly, misinformation fills the gaps before facts can. Two specific claims spread widely enough in the Nolan Wells case that they shaped what a significant portion of the public believed was true. Both of them are wrong and both have been corrected on the record. The first involved a photograph. After Nolan's body was found, an image began circulating online that many people believed showed him alive after July 4. The photo appeared to be from a pool party and was being treated by some as evidence that something about the official timeline was off. Rolling Stone investigated the image and confirmed through its metadata and through a direct account from Nolan's friend Tristan Shepard that the photograph was taken on June 27, a full week before the Horn Island trip ever happened. It had been uploaded online on July 5, which is what created the confusion about its timing. It is not evidence of anything that occurred after July 4. The second claim involved a video. Audio circulating online was widely believed to capture Nolan's voice during an argument, with someone heard saying "Give me my phone." Tristan Shepard addressed that directly and publicly. The voice in that recording was his, not Nolan's. That has been confirmed and corrected. The third misconception worth clearing involves the FBI. Reports spread online suggesting federal authorities had taken over the investigation entirely. FBI Jackson confirmed that is not accurate. The Bureau's role is limited to assisting Jackson County investigators with threats made against individuals connected to the case that cross state lines, placing them under federal jurisdiction. The Jackson County Sheriff's Office has remained the lead investigating agency from the beginning and continues in that role. The documented record does not support any of these viral claims. What it does support is complicated enough on its own. On July 15, 2026, 11 days after Nolan Wells did not come home from Horn Island, his parents sat across a table from the Jackson County District Attorney for the first time. Christine and Elmore Wansley met face-to-face with DA Angel Myers-McElrath at her office. It was the first direct meeting between the family and the District Attorney's office since Nolan's body had been recovered. Ben Crump, who was present, described the meeting afterward as respectful and candid. For a family that had spent nearly 2 weeks feeling like they were on the outside of their own son's case, that meeting represented a shift, however small, towards something that felt like direct communication. Out of that meeting came the most significant procedural development in the case to date. DA McElrath confirmed that once the Jackson County Sheriff's Office completes its investigation, the findings will be presented to a grand jury. She stated that this is standard procedure in Jackson County for cases involving unknown or unnatural deaths. It applies regardless of whether investigators believe a crime has occurred. That distinction is worth holding clearly. A grand jury referral is not a charge. It is not an indication that the DA believes someone committed a crime. It is a formal review mechanism through which a body of citizens evaluates the full evidentiary record and determines whether there is sufficient basis to bring charges against anyone. No charges have been filed in this case. No arrests have been made. The grand jury has not yet convened on this matter. What Crump identified as the meaningful element of this development is the grand jury's authority. A grand jury has the power to subpoena witnesses. That includes witnesses who have not yet spoken to investigators voluntarily. For a family whose questions have repeatedly run into the wall of legal representation and limited cooperation, that subpoena power represents a mechanism that could compel testimony no one has been able to obtain through any other channel. Crump's stated expectation is direct. A thorough investigation must be completed, and every relevant fact must be placed before the grand jury. In his words, nothing held back and nothing overlooked. As of this recording, the full picture of where the investigation stands is this. Both autopsy results remain unreleased. The mutual phone inspection agreed upon at the July 15th meeting has not yet taken place. The contradiction between Katie's account and the friend's account has not been officially resolved. The cause and manner of Nolan's death has not been declared. The Jackson County Sheriff's Office leads the investigation. The FBI's role remains limited to the interstate threat component. And the case remains fully open. Every thread is still live. Not one of them has been closed. Christine Wansley announced that her son's homegoing celebration would be held on Monday, July 20th at Center Point Church in Ocean Springs, the same community where Nolan grew up, played football, and became the person his coaches and teammates described with such consistency. Visitation is scheduled from 9 to 11 a.m., with the service beginning immediately after. Reverend Al Sharpton will officiate. Christine was clear about the tone she wanted. Nolan would not want sadness filling that room. She described the plan as a celebration, including a gathering for friends and family at the Jackson County Fairgrounds. That intention says something about who he was and about who his mother is in the middle of circumstances that would break most people entirely. Tyler Perry is covering the funeral costs. Colin Kaepernick's Know Your Rights camp funded the independent autopsy. Spike Lee showed up in New York to stand beside this family in front of cameras. The support surrounding the Wansleys is not symbolic. It is documented, financial, and present. And yet none of it answers the questions that remain open. Both autopsy results are unreleased. The mutual phone inspection has not taken place. The Snapchat content from that day has not been recovered. The location data discrepancy on Nolan's phone has not been explained. The contradiction between Katie's account and the friend's account has not been officially resolved. The clothing discrepancy in the police report remains on the record uncorrected. The 911 call in which the boat operator told the dispatcher that everyone was on board, while Nolan was not on board, has not been explained. No cause of death has been declared. No charges have been filed. No arrests have been made. Nolan Wells made salmon for his mother on July 3rd, hugged her and walked out the door. His father raised him to stay with his group. Neither of those things brought him home from Horn Island. This case is not closed. The autopsy results alone could change the direction of this entire investigation. When they drop, when the grand jury moves, when the phone data is finally examined, Unsolved Files will have the first verified breakdown. No rumors. No speculation. Just every confirmed fact the moment it becomes available. Subscribe right now and turn on notifications. You do not want to be the last person to know when this case breaks open. Drop a comment below and tell us which unanswered question concerns you most. The 911 call. The deleted Snapchats. The two conflicting accounts of Nolan's last words. We read every comment. Let us know.